Kia ora, talofa, namaste, haere and welcome to the Niche Cache, where we are here to go deep into Aotearoa sporting matters as we do every week on a Tuesday. And if you do enjoy what we're doing here at the Niche Cache, you can join us on Patreon. Great way to support our mahi, and we do an extra podcast every Thursday for the folks on Patreon. We've got the Substack as well. That is a newsletter dropping every Monday and Thursday evening. But the bonus podcast we record on Thursday is available for paid subscribers on Substack, and of course the whole Patreon whānau. So a big up to everyone supporting what we do. We are here to chat Aotearoa sports, and I think the time has come, because it is a little bit weird with the seasonal mix at the moment. Because in summer, you know, cricket is in the spotlight. We do have some like A-League football and stuff like that taken over, and that's how I personally structure my newsletters. In summer, cricket first, rugby league second. Then we get into winter, rugby league first, cricket second. And we are at a strange time of our lives where it is like in between. We're in between worlds here. We're in between seasons. We're in between sporting seasons. And we do have fun cricket left over from the summer. We still have fun A-League football left over from the summer. But we are here in March, and the Warriors have won 3 games in a row to start the season. Not only that, but the under-21s team has won all 3 of their games to start the season, and the New South Wales Cup Warriors have 1 win from their 3 games. So overall, it is a winning start across the top 3 grades for the Warriors, and they had an excellent win against the Newcastle Knights. They've obviously been excellent all season, and we'll break some matters down, but I want to set the scene because the Warriors will host the Tigers on Friday night, and the Warriors have made this a bit of an event. It's the stage a spectacular Pacifica night under lights at Mount Smart Stadium this Friday. So the Warriors will be celebrating multicultural round with their own Pacifica night. And I think the way the Warriors have described this in their announcement of Pacifica night, shout out to all the other cultures represented, and shout out to all the cultures around the world. This is just about the Pacifica nations for the Warriors against the Tigers Friday night, Mount Smart Stadium. It seems like the Warriors want to make this something far bigger than anything we have seen in Australia. And I think this will be something far bigger than any multicultural celebration gesture we saw in Australia. And I think the Tigers and a lot of other NRL players, a lot of other NRL communities are going to be looking at this on Friday night, and they're going to think, holy cow, what's going on at Mount Smart? What's going on with the Warriors? And this, I think, will be an example of just how the Warriors are, as an organization, so far ahead of a lot of other NRL organizations. So that is to say, there's been an excellent start to the season in the NRL, and also the under-21s, they're doing pretty well. That excellent start where everything about the Warriors playing rugby league is vibrant, fun, funky, entertaining, interesting, intriguing. That leads us into what will be, I reckon, an absolute monster of a Friday night at Mount Smart Stadium against the Tigers. And I think the Tigers are going to be in awe of what we see at Mount Smart Stadium with this celebration of Pacifica culture for the biggest ticket in New Zealand sport and one of the biggest tickets in the NRL now. The Warriors are up there as the most entertaining product in the NRL. Their footy is matching it, and now I think it's going to be even more amplified with this cultural celebration at Mount Smart Stadium on Friday night. So they're coming off an excellent win against the Tigers. They're coming off an excellent win against the Knights. It's going to be like the Tigers are pretty good at footy right now, so it's going to be a good rugby league matchup. But then you've also got the celebration of culture at Mount Smart, and I think all of it is going to blow away the NRL community. And I think, well, I don't know if it will blow away the New Zealand sports community because they're still worried about the All Blacks. So who cares about the New Zealand sports community, because they don't seem to understand that the Warriors are the biggest ticket in New Zealand sport. But I think it can only go up a gear. Now, of course, it can only go up a gear if the Warriors win that game against the Tigers. It will be a bit of a bummer if they lose that on this occasion. But I do believe there is an opportunity to blow it up even further. And that would be kind of crazy.
You know, it's funny because just like 10 seconds, literally about 10 seconds before you said that about people caring too much about the All Blacks, I got my phone flashed and I darted my eyes across and notification that Dave Rennie's failed his assistant coaching staff. So I think you might be on the money there with that, with where those priorities lie, because the only thing about that was we put in the big sell in for the Warriors game on Friday night. I'm thinking like the All Whites somehow are playing at the same time at Eden Park against I think it's against Finland on Friday, and then they're playing Chile on Monday. So they don't really have a choice. If you want to get two games in through the weekend, you got to go Friday, Monday, or you got to go Thursday, Monday, or maybe Thursday, Sunday. But that's cutting it pretty fine with the travel getting there. So they just have to be when they are. But that does mean that the All Whites have got one of their two farewell games before the World Cup, and they've gotten good crowds when they've played in Auckland, especially over the last couple of years too. They've got that on Friday night. The winning streak Warriors playing a big, multicultural, spectacular evening showcase on Friday night. I don't know what the Super Rugby's doing, but I'm guessing that's just. Well, the Blues couldn't be at home because the Eden Park's been used up by the All Whites. So, if you're looking for the alternative to the rugby mainstream, you got two pretty nice options there on Friday night. Or you could just go to the Warriors on Friday night and go to the All Whites on Monday as well. Like you could just you could see both of them because there is a double there for the All Whites.
They are very different communities, so it's not like a massive crowd for the Warriors at Mount Smart will take away from a massive crowd for the All Whites at Eden Park. Like they are very, like, of course, there's sporting overlap because we're Kiwis and we love our sport, but the football community is like, they're kind of their own little thing. And that's what a lot of like other sports fans or like the Kiwi media don't understand, is just how hearty that football community is across the grades, across the levels. Especially, like, it's a bit confusing. I don't know what domestic football league we have now, but because like this, it's just so confusing to keep
I could explain it, but it's going to change in a year, so there's not much point.
Right, but there's another, like the interest and intrigue about lower level football is bigger than interest in lower level rugby union, and I would go as far as say that includes first 15. Because there's so many football nerd gurus who are super tapped in with what Miramar's doing, like that type of. Are they still? Yeah, they might still be a club. I don't know, but like
they're right. Yeah, they're doing all right.
That type of like know-how is very strong in football. Of course, the Blues won't be playing at Mount Smart Stadium either, so they must not be playing in Auckland, I'd imagine. I don't know. Who cares? But the Blues do seem to be wanting a bit of that Mount Smart juice, because I think they've scheduled a few games at Mount Smart. They won't get the Mount Smart juice because they're not the Warriors.
Football gets the Mount Smart juice, though. That's another overlap between those communities,
Is it
Off the
though?
back of not a very good performance for Auckland there on the weekend, admittedly, with one of their lower crowds, actually. I think there was
Well,
only about 11K there.
that's something I was thinking about. Like, shout out to the Auckland FC fans, but like, where are you? Like the compare, like obviously you got the first season hype, the first season buzz, but there's been a massive drop off in Auckland FC crowds compared to last season. I just don't. I find it weird. Like you were an Auckland FC fan last year, but you don't show up this year. Like the team is still one of the best teams in the A-League. Sure, they stunk it up and they lost that game last weekend, but and the Derby crowds have still been pretty good. But like we were talking about Auckland FC having consistently big crowds that were 4,000, 5,000 less than the Warriors last season. Now they're not even comparable because the Warriors have maintained 22,000, 23,000, 24,000, and Auckland FC, they're getting 12,000, 13,000. So it's like, yeah, like we do love what Auckland FC is doing at Mount Smart Stadium, but people just stop showing up even though the team is still doing their thing. So it's like, yeah, okay, you just got sucked into the first season hype and then you disappeared. Like I don't know what is happening there, but of course the port
There's some
and
of that.
the port is still hardcore, and there's like shout out to the port. This is another. We're kind of moving through a lot of stuff here, but when I look around the A-League hardcore fans, the Australian clubs, it's all like respectfully hooligans, like on the men's side. Like, so Australian A-League team, they're hardcore fans who are doing all the ruckus. They look like your typical football hooligan. And then you watch them, they're all giving the fingers to everyone. Like the Newcastle fans, they're just like singing swear songs at people. Like they look and act like football hooligans. You look at Auckland FC's the Port and even the Yellow Fever, you've got like old women a part of those. As like I saw an older woman in the Port. You see kids who are in the Port by themselves. And I have noticed that when you see like other teams come into Mount Smart to play Auckland FC, their fans, whenever the camera's on them, they're pulling the fingers. It's like, can you support your team without like hooligan behavior? Like, is it possible? Because I'm looking at Auckland FC in the Port, and it's just people there who love their team and they're there to celebrate their team. They're not trying to bring the ruckus to the other fan base. Of course, if there's the Phoenix, then there's a little bit of ruckus. But like you can watch, you can be a football fan, you can be a hardcore, what do they call it, the ultra. You can be an ultra without being a hooligan. And there, I have noticed there is a clear difference between the Port and the Yellow Fever compared to Australian A-League fans who they're hooligans. Whereas the Port and Yellow Fever are hardcore fans. They're hardcore football fans, so they want to sing their songs. They want to get up and about. They're not just going to be sitting down, having some chips, having a beer and watching the sport. They're going to be doing their football fandom thing, but you can do it without like just abusing people. Like it's all good. You don't need to do that. So shout out to Yellow Fever and the Port. But I have noticed the Auckland FC crowds have dropped off, and that is a little bit weird. It might be a little bit humbling, of true definition of the word humbling, for some of the Auckland FC boss men and just their organization. Like, you're not automatically getting 17, 18,000 to your games. Like, that happened in the first season, but it's not happening in the second season.
Yeah, there has been definitely there was a wave in that first season, which I don't think has continued into it, but I think that's pretty normal for these kind of things. It's then it's then in that second season onwards where you sort of find your baseline and what that's going to be. So if their baseline settles at around 11 to 14K for home games, that they can sort of rely on that, they're still going to be in a good place. But we should hopefully, a good tester of that will be what we see for the rest of the season, because they'll only have a couple of home games left before the finals, and then they'll have at least one finals home game after that, and we should hopefully see the sort of, once people start seeing the finish line, it's like these are the games you got to turn up to. In the meantime, maybe they're just saving their petrol. I don't know, because there was a bit of chat. I guess we'll talk about this a bit later. But there was a bit of chat about whether Auckland were complacent in that game, and I did notice that like the energy from the crowd is harder when there's half as many people in there as you can fit. Like it's never the crowd's fault. It's entirely on the players to do their thing. But like it can help if you get a little bit more. If it feels like, you know, it can help against complacency if it feels like it's a big occasion, which is always going to feel like if it's a sellout. Like every Warriors game at home there feels like a big occasion because that many people have packed in to see it. But yeah, hopefully we'll see that coming down the line. I will say A-League crowds in general are pretty crap. Like just in terms of numbers, everyone seems to be low. And because it's easy to make fun of the Phoenix it's easy and it's also correct to make fun of the Phoenix playing in a massive stadium, which they can't fill out, because there are other stadiums they could play in and fill out and have a much better atmosphere. But that's not abnormal in the A-League. Like there's a lot of those teams who just play in the stadium that's there, whether it fits them, whether it suits them. I don't know if you saw much of the Phoenix's game, which is on at the exact same time as the Warriors on Saturday night, away in Brisbane at Suncorp Stadium with like, I don't know quite how much Suncorp fits, but at least 50,000 empty seats there. You know, that's ridiculous. There's nobody on the in the lower stand. I think because it was early evenings / afternoon kick in March in Brisbane, it was a bit hot. So obviously everyone's sitting higher up to try to get under the shade. But it's like it doesn't look great on TV when it's just like orange seats everywhere. Like you don't even see a person on the camera.
It does seem something that the A-League could do better, because the Phoenix men, they don't seem to want to play at Jerry Collins Stadium in Aotearoa, and you could do that and just have a crazier atmosphere. And I have seen Brisbane Roar, they have played a few games at that Redcliffe Stadium. Like, why do you have to play at Suncorp? You could play at a raucous Aotearoa Park, Jerry Collins Stadium, or Redcliffe Stadium, or another little smaller venue and have an atmosphere, or you could play at Suncorp Stadium and it's empty. Up to you. But that seems more like an A-League type of thing. So shout out to the Aussie hooligans. One thing I have been thinking about with the Warriors, and like it's not perfect, but I'm sorry I have to keep comparing the Warriors to the Dragons, but it's just one thing. So when Jackson Ford left the Dragons, Blake Lowry was like a pretty good middle forward. Like he was like a starting prop at that stage, maybe coming off the bench, but he was pretty good. Now Jackson Ford is one of the best middle forwards in the NRL. And like I did read something where Blake Lowry had to go through this crazy transformation just to like change his body shape and to try and keep up with the NRL. He's not really a factor. So I didn't think like at some point Jackson Ford, he wasn't stuck behind Blake Lowry at the Dragons because he was an edge forward, right? He was playing on an edge for the Dragons, and then he moved to the Warriors and came to the Warriors as an edge forward. But it's like an interesting way of thinking about what Jackson Ford's doing right now. He might be one of the Dragons' best forwards if you took this version of Jackson Ford and put him in the Dragons. Shane Flanagan is starting him ahead of all their other players in the 4-pack, and he's like, he might be $1 million player for the Dragons. And meanwhile, you've got someone like imagine if the Warriors signed Blake Lowry instead of Jackson Ford, considering where we are right now. I thought like that's just a crazy thing, because Blake Lowry was like one of the best up and coming forwards throughout his career till he stopped being up and coming, he was one of their best forwards at the Dragons. And I'd say at every juncture, Blake Lawrie was ranked ahead of Jackson Ford just as a straight up forward. Middle edge, who cares? He would have been ahead of Jackson Ford heading into all the seasons that they were together in the Dragons system. And there's no comparison between them right now, aside from they used to play for the Dragons together.
Yeah, Blake Lawrie feels like one of those players, maybe the definitive player even, whose like career has been ruined by 6 agains. It's just set restarts mean that the game is faster, and then he can't keep because he's a big bopper who might have been like a cult hero and had a spectacular career in the 80s and 90s. But in the 2020s, he can barely get on the park now because the game's got faster and he's got slower. Which is really funny because right about the time that juncture happened would have been about the time when they re-signed Lawrie. I don't think this happened specifically at the same time, but like Lawrie is retained, Ford is released, Ford goes to the Warriors, reinvents himself, but also just kind of not really reinvents, just kind of emerges into his final form, which happens to fit better with that team and fit better with the way that the league has gone. And Blake Lawrie goes in the opposite direction, and the Warriors go in one direction, and the Dragons stay pointed in the other direction. Don't really get worse, but stay there where they are. Don't get better. Yeah, he's not even really. I don't even think he was in the team for the Vegas game. He might not have played either of those games. He did play on the weekend, but he's barely hanging on, and he's one of them big boppers that kind of there's not really a place for you in the league these days if you're big but slow and you don't move your feet very well laterally and you can't break tackles. Like there's not much this if you can't do those things, there's someone else who can, and they might be playing under 21s and they're better than you already, you know.
Someone else like Jackson Ford, who is pretty big.
Yep.
He is pretty slow, but he moves. He is Mr. Dally M apparently. So he's busting tackles every which way. It was a good win, obviously, against the Knights, and that did there's a couple of things just comparing the Warriors to other clubs. I find it very interesting when other teams will say, yeah, but we're without so-and-so, without Kalen Ponga, without Dylan Brown. And people don't say that for the Warriors. People assume it for the Warriors, right? Like, oh, the Warriors are going to be without Luke Metcalf, so they're going to be shit. Oh, the Warriors are going to be without Mitchell Barnett, so they're going to be shit. There's assumptions about how the Warriors will play without starter quality players in key positions. And then there's the reality. And the reality is the Warriors have at least held steady regardless of injuries, regardless of departures even, because the list of Warriors, Tohu Harris is gone, Sean Johnson's gone, Fanua Blake's gone. The Warriors won't make the top 8. Guess what? They did. And at every season we've had under Andrew Webster, the Warriors have dealt with departures or absences really well. They've either had a slight dip or they have held steady and remained competitive to fill us all with confidence that regardless of who's playing, they might get the job done. And there's other teams, again, put yourself in the Dragons' position. You don't have a Kalen Ponga, you don't have a Dylan Brown, so I don't know who's this player for you. How are you feeling if you're missing Damien Cook or unfortunately for the Dragons, these players might not even impact things. If you're without Clint Gutherson, you might be a better team. I don't know. I don't want to assume that. But there is a thing where you see other teams and how they talk about their team when they're missing a few players. If you have invested so much into one or two players that you don't have depth and versatility in quality in other positions to hold you down, or you don't have enough players like on the rise to put pressure on the players you're paying a lot of money to. The Warriors have it all right now. And like, I don't know the salaries and the contracts, but I mean, the Warriors didn't have their first choice fullback and they didn't have their first choice halves combination against the Knights, and they were in total control of that game. So both teams were without their first choice fullback and their first choice halves combination. One team was awesome, the other team wasn't that good. To me, that sums up where the Warriors are at right now as an NRL team, but also where the Warriors are at as an organization and what they're doing with their depth and just quality of players throughout the system. The other thing from the Knights is praise jar that the Warriors are a tracksuit coaching box team. And respect to the Dragons, I think they're more of a tracksuit type of team. Like Shane Flanagan, I think, obviously haven't like done the research, but I do remember Shane Flanagan, he was in like a Dragons jacket maybe in the coach's box.
Yeah, I think he does, yeah.
Which suits me far better than dressing like you go into a wedding type of attire that the Knights wear. Like the Knights, it's a weird mix because they keep talking about, oh, we're blue collar, you know, we're the working man's club and all this stuff. And all your coaches and players who are out injured are dressed as if they're going to a 9-to-5 big city job. Like I don't see the connection between being a blue collar, hard working man's team and then your coach and your staff are all dressed like they're going to the races or something, like some stuff that I'll never do because I'll never dress like that. So obviously you can tell where my emotions come into this. I just find it weird, but I'm grateful that the Warriors don't do that gimmick. Like, and I'm not saying the Knights should be wearing high-vis and all that shit with that, which they celebrate, and they wear their high-vis uniform, so the coach needs to be in his high-vis gear or something. Like, no, bro, just chuck on your Knights tracksuit, and it's all good. You don't need to be dressed up like that just to lose a game, you know?
Yeah, well, everything looks worse when you lose. That might summarize some of those Dragon things that we're talking about before too. Like you lose and nothing looks very good. There is another Flanagan that dresses worse though, who wears a Dragons number 6 jersey, who maybe could wear something different on game day, might help. There might be one of those examples of take out a star player and the team gets better. Not at his best on the weekend. No, I won't go down that line. You don't need to hear the complaints about how the Dragons threw away a loss against the Eels.
You do like throwing away losses. Like, it does seem like a common theme with the Dragons. Of course, like football coaches like Steve Corica, if you're standing on the sideline and you want to dress up, like that's all good. I don't really have an issue with that. And we see obviously football coaches around the world, there's such a wide variety of uniforms that the coaches wear.
Pep Guardiola had his plaid shirt on the other day. That was a new one. I haven't seen that before.
But if you're just sitting up in the box,
yeah,
just
you're not even on display, you know.
I don't know. It's weird stuff. The win over the Knights did feel like the 2023 Warriors, where they just tear apart a team with the little short passing, they overpower them, and it was like, that just you're seeing things with how the Warriors play where we've seen little glimpses of it before, and I think now we're dealing with the combination of like good things that have happened throughout this to Andy's era. Like we've seen the high completion rates before, we've seen the discipline before, we've had like. Last year, I don't think they were doing the short passing as much. And short passing always happens in the NRL, but there's a difference between short passing and the receiver has a body in front of him, and short passing where the receiver has a wide open hole in front of them to score the try. That felt very 2023 when Tohu Harris was putting dudes through holes. Fanua Blake was putting people into holes. Obviously, Dylan Walker's coming on the field. He's putting people in the hole. Dylan Walker, who was better than any Dragons player in that game against the Eels versus Dragons. Like, Dylan Walker's still doing his thing, so shout out to Dylan Walker. But it did feel like a 2023 type of performance from the Warriors, and that's another exciting thing about what they're doing is they've shown such variety in how they can win a game of rugby league. There are fundamentals that are there every single game, and thankfully smashing dudes in tackles is a fundamental as much as completion rates, and that's very exciting for like Warriors people who haven't seen that level of defensive intensity, and that is a James Fisher-Harris trait. But you're seeing bits and pieces from other seasons under Andrew Webster, and to me that win over the Knights just summed that up nicely with the short passing. And because if you've got the short passing, then whoever's got the ball and they've got that short pass option, they can also run. Because the defense might be expecting the pass, you just boost it like Tana Boyd did. So I did enjoy that win over the Knights and how comprehensive, how clinical it was. It was just like the Warriors did their thing and just casually won 38-12.
Are you thinking just one game at a time, or are you thinking further ahead about like, or have you thought further ahead about the like, what do they actually do when Luke Metcalf comes back? Because there has been a thing, right, when you in the past where they've like the certain players. I remember you saying this about Rocco Berry last season. Like certain players who are kind of like, Webster views them as starting players. Don't really like they'll just come straight back into the team when they're ready to go. This is probably a little bit different. You might want to give him a couple reserve grade games because he's been out for longer, but there's also a case to say like you just stay in reserve grade until your opportunity comes, whether that's in 2 weeks or 2 months or whatever, because Tana Boyd's doing nothing wrong and a whole lot right.
I am far more mindful than any of that. So I did say on the the review video on YouTube, because right now you're seeing like so many different media publications, their Warriors story is this the year for the Warriors? Like that's the most insightful thing they can talk about for the Warriors is this the year? Which I find a little bit ludicrous. Like the most informative thing,
3 games, yeah.
Well, yeah, and like the most informative thing you can say about the Warriors, your take, your opinion, the best thing you can say about the Warriors, the best thing you can deliver me talking about the Warriors is this is the year. So I say that because the reason I don't like that is like let's just win next week. We've got a big game coming up against the Tigers. I laid out how massive that game's going to be. To me, that's just as important. That's just as fun as any big picture idea. So when I'm thinking, because it's the same thing, right? Everything you just said is also what you're seeing a lot of the Warriors' talking points are being. What happens when Luke Metcalf returns? Basically, what they're saying is, what happens in 4 weeks' time? I don't know.
Speculative.
Yeah, no, that is a huge element of sport. We're mindfulness here, so we're trying to chill and be present and enjoy the moment, and I am pretty content with enjoying this moment when the Warriors are an awesome team. Like, can't we just bask in that glow and enjoy it to the best of our ability? And I did say in the video, like, how do you think the Warriors are viewing this? Do you think Tana Boyd, he's just thinking about when Luke Metcalf returns? No, Tana Boyd's just trying to do his best today. We're recording on a Tuesday. Tana Boyd's trying to have his best training session today. That's how I operate as a person. I'm just trying to do my best today. So I guess my personal mindset frames all of this because I'm just trying to do my best today. That's it. I can't tell you what's going to happen in 4 weeks. All I can do is do my best today, tell you how I'm feeling today, what I'm thinking today, share what I need to share today. That's it. And like that is the situation obviously with like not just Luke Metcalf but a few other Warriors players and just where they're at. Everyone's thinking in the future, which I find a little bit interesting that everyone just like again, this is part of sports fandom. This everyone like it's a natural thing to be going off into the future. For my own sanity, I choose to be present. But also this is rugby league. How can we assume that in a month's time or 2 months' time, everything's going to be perfect? Like, again, that's life. We can't assume that in 4 weeks' time, everything will be perfect, everything will be aligned, and your best case scenario will have to deal with that best case scenario in the future. That's life, and this is rugby league. How many injuries have the Warriors had? Like, they had like Kerr, Nickel Clockstar, Chanel Harris-Tavita, like concussions, injuries, suspensions. It's all there in a game of rugby league where you got two teams of like 19, 20 players who are trying to smash each other, let alone the intensity of trainings. So all the Luke Metcalf ideas, it revolves around a best case scenario of Luke Metcalf's healthy and everyone else in the team is healthy. To me, that doesn't seem realistic based on what we know about the NRL. So I don't know what Andrew Webster will do in that situation. What I do believe is the decision will be far easier than everyone's talking about it right now, because someone's going to be injured. Someone's going to be suspended. Someone's going to be in form. Someone's going to be out of form. Factors that will become evident over the next 4 weeks, 2 months, will determine what happens at that juncture far off in the future when we get to it. Let's try beat the Tigers on Friday night. All of which smells like a nice entry into mindfulness. I'm not for sure if you got a topical mindfulness about being present in the moment, which is obviously the opposite of what a lot of sports media do, and we are only here to do what we want to do, and that is the niche case summed up. Hit me with some mindfulness.
Yeah, I just pivoted on that while you're saying that, because I had a feeling that was going to be the direction you took that answer down, and that was a very good answer. I enjoyed that, and I will therefore extend that on and say like, because I think it is a very sporting thing to do that, like projecting about the future. I think that's also just a very like, people do that in all contexts where it's like you work hard to get something. For in this case, the Warriors winning 3 games in a row. Like it's taken a long time to see the Warriors first time in 10 years or something like that. I can't remember what the stat was that they've won their first 3 games. It's like works hard to get to that point. You achieve something, and then it's like one of two things becomes either the fear of losing it straight away or the like desire for more. It's like it's not enough. I need more. I need something else on top of 3 wins in a row. Yeah, but what? Let's win the championship. It's like just enjoy the 3 wins in a row as well. don't get too far ahead of yourself. For reasons which are described here in this mindfulness quote by the poet Rumi. The wise do not look at more or less. They know that both are as transient as a flash flood.
So more and less are as transient as a flash flood.
Things come and things go. There are good times, there are bad times. The only thing you know for sure when things are going well is that at some point they're going to be going not so well. But when they're going not so well, you know, at some point they'll be going better than this. The Warriors right now are winning. They might lose every other game this season. They're probably not going to, but, you know, probability stakes is there's at least that's something that could happen because those games haven't been played yet. And every game is either won or lost. enjoy your winning times, right? And they're not going to last forever. Maybe it will, maybe it'll get better on top of this, but also like don't waste the moment that you're in right now when that moment is pretty good.
These Warriors moments are very good. Like, that is why I try and be as present as possible, because when you sit down and watch the Warriors play right now, you're having fun. Like, what else matters than watching the Warriors play good rugby league? Like, it's just one of the best things in New Zealand sport. But also, if you do allow me to dip out of the moment,
By all means.
what happened last year? The Warriors were good, and then they had injuries, season-ending injuries to Mitchell Barnett and Luke Metcalf, and they stayed pretty good, but the perception, the vibe, and everything about the Warriors did change after those injuries. So I do find it absolutely bonkers that we are here, having just experienced last season, and people are still looking miles ahead. Like, and somehow it revolves around Luke Metcalf, right? Because we're thinking, what happens when Luke Metcalf returns? This time last year, the Warriors were really good with Luke Metcalf in the team, and then he got injured, season-ending injury, and they stayed pretty good. Like, I'm never going to say the Warriors fell off after losing Metcalf, because that didn't happen. But we have this, like, it's all encapsulated with Luke Metcalf. He got injured last season, and it did have an impact on the Warriors' season. And now everyone in their minds is just assuming that things are going to stay this way until Luke Metcalf returns from injury. Like, we just had the example last year, let alone all the examples this year. Kerr Capewell injured before the Raiders game, multiple concussions in one game, the Raiders game. Like, these things are going to happen. So to me, that's the floods, and those are floods because the most visible people talking about these sports, the Warriors and the other sports, they're taking you out of the moment. So it's not just like, oh, I just heard this little whisper. What happens when Luke Metcalf returns? Is this the Warriors' year? Those are little trickles. Those are little just little raindrops that then trickle down into the estuary. But when you've got highly visible media saying, is this the Warriors' year? What happens when Luke Metcalf returns? Then it's a flood. Then you're getting into the flood of what you're talking about, thanks to Rumi. And if you're dealing in floodwaters, you're dealing in volatility. You're moving fast. You're destructive. You're ripping up houses, you're ripping up land and nature and destroying shit on your path of flood. None of which sounds good to me. So I try to be a little bit more mellow, a little bit more chill with how we're talking about it. But I can do that knowing how much fun we're having in the moment. Why would I think about anything more than a banger of a game against the West Tigers on Friday night? What is more interesting about the Warriors than what's happening this next round? Of course, Friday night isn't in the present moment, but we're dealing with round by round Warriors footy. Like, I literally can't think anything more exciting, interesting, intriguing, fun than Warriors versus Tigers on Friday night. I don't know why you'd want to think anything else. Because wins and losses, stuff is going to change for the Warriors over the next few weeks. And those things just sort themselves out. That's another aspect of the mindfulness, is a lot of the times when you are thinking, when you do have anxiety of like, oh, I've got this thing I need to do next week. Oh, I've got this thing that's kind of building up and it's like in a couple of months and I'm stressing about it. It just sorts itself out. Someone pops out of nowhere to help you. The solutions are just given to you. They're presented to you. Maybe your favorite deity steps in and just alters matters in your favor. Whatever it is, Mother Nature just has a way of sorting things out. So none of your anxiety, none of your stress, none of your fear actually comes to fruition. And you didn't have to do anything. It's not like you solve the riddle of your anxiety, your fear, and your stress by fixing it. No. The solution just appeared magically because we're living on Earth and there is some sort of mystical force. Now, again, you can say Mother Nature, you can say Jah, you can say Allah, you can say God, you can say whatever you want as the reason for the solution appearing. But sometimes your fear and anxiety is not warranted because it just fixes itself. And I think that's the beautiful thing about living here on Earth.
Well, I mean, you can even say coincidence or just laws of probability for the reason those solutions come around. As the solution comes around, the solution's there. You don't have to overthink that. You don't have to worry about where it came from. It's there. And I mean, what do the Warriors do when Luke Metcalf comes back? What if Luke Metcalf comes back and he's not even the best half called Luke at the Warriors by that point, you know?
That's a pretty crazy thing to say. I respect it. I respect it. I was thinking about asking you, like, do you have like a favorite Warriors player or just any Warriors player that's top of mind for you? And then you dropped the two Lukes. So shout out to Luke Hansen. He was solid on debut. And he did his job, and I think that's one of my favorite things about the Warriors is there's so many players who are just doing their job, young and old. They're just chipping in. And Luke Hansen, he does have the ability to just be dripping X Factor and get all these headlines and highlights and stuff like that. I do think he has that ability because he's a fast little bloke who's going to rip in. But the Warriors don't need that. Right? The Warriors just need someone to do their job in the system, and we have now got ample evidence that it is one of the best systems in the NRL. In that game, we also had a debut for Francis Manuleleua. He came off the bench for the Knights. We've been talking about it for a couple of weeks because he's been named on that bench a couple of times, and he debuted for the Knights. Now, I did find it interesting that I mainly saw him playing as a middle forward, which is a little bit ridiculous because since joining the Knights, Manuleleua has mainly just played edge forward. Like last season, he was just playing 80 minutes edge forward, building towards his NRL debut. Charlisse Leger-Walker, he's a Mangere East junior, Southern Cross campus. Manuleleua is a Papatoetoe junior. Went to King's College, same vicinity, hotbed of rugby league. Leger-Walker was playing edge forward for the Knights in New South Wales Cup. Then he plays NRL under whoever their coach was. What's the dude's name? Can't remember. Adam O'Brien. And a lot of his NRL game time was through the middle. Then you check in with New South Wales Cup this week, and Leger-Walker was captaining their team as an edge forward. So you got one player, Leger-Walker. New South Wales Cup game time, edge forward. Makes his debut, and he's playing a lot of middle forward. And then he's playing New South Wales Cup to start this year as an edge forward. If he's playing edge forward in New South Wales Cup, that means he's been overtaken by Manuleleua, who was an edge forward last season in New South Wales Cup, and he got his NRL game time on debut as a middle forward. The weird thing is there's two different coaches involved, Adam O'Brien and Holbrook. But they've done the same thing, and it's something that I don't really like. You could make the case that it's a good way to just get someone a few minutes early in their career. Like Manuleleua, we need an extra body in the middle, just go on and just go crazy in the middle. Like, I understand that. None of his New South Wales Cup game time was like designed to prepare him to play middle forward in the NRL though. And I saw that with Leo Moana last year with a different coach. I'm pretty confident that any player in the Warriors system, they're going to be doing a lot of repetitions, not just training repetitions, but lower grade repetitions of game time, game experience in the position they will probably play in the NRL. That seems smart, right? Like, if you're going to be playing in the ruthless NRL, you might want a bit of game experience in the position you're going to be playing there. But we've got two players who seem to be edge forwards who have got a lot of game time in the NRL for the Knights as middle forwards. Of course, there is crossover because we look at the Warriors. Most of their forward pack were edge forwards. But any emerging player in that, like Morgan Gannon, he's played edge and middle forward for the Warriors in a preseason game and New South Wales Cup. So, like, he can play edge and middle in the NRL. Iriaramia Toiava has played centre, middle, and edge in New South Wales Cup and NRL preseason. These guys are getting game time in the role they're going to do for the NRL team. That's why I talk about, like, having clear roles throughout the system. Having clear roles flowing down from NRL to New South Wales Cup to under 21s. Because when you're asked to do that job in the NRL, it's going to be bloody tough. I don't really see why Manuleleua, like, the Knights' edge forwards were all good. Were they so good that they kept Manuleleua out of that position in a game they were losing by a notable margin? I don't know. Manuleleua will play a lot more NRL. I expect him to just be part of their squad moving forward. Maybe they can build him up to be an edge and a middle forward. To me, he's just an awesome edge forward. Just keep him there. Let him get some experience. I find it weird that you've got two very similar players between him and Leo Moana on the fringe of that NRL team, but more depth the merrier. He looks like an NRL player, Manuleleua. He's big enough, he's mobile enough. That's why he's so good at edge forward. And then I saw him debut as a middle forward. I was just like, I don't know if that's working. And the Knights have history of doing this weird stuff. So it just didn't make a whole lot of sense for me. But he is our third Kiwi-NRL debutant this year, I believe. Siale Whaiamani, Setu Tu, and Francis Manuleleua. All of them are from Auckland, which is interesting considering the explosion of rugby league around Aotearoa. So you might look at that and say 3 Kiwi-NRL debuts this year, all from Auckland. That's just normal New Zealand rugby league. It's just all Auckland, rah, rah, rah. Those 3 debuts do not reflect the status of rugby league in Aotearoa. Because 17-year-old Bishop Neal from Christchurch just made his debut in the New South Wales Cup. There's a lot of 17-year-olds doing the crazy shit right now, right? Like Vucevic, that's the one. Sorry, got it confused. Stipe Vucevic. No, Luka
Vucevic.
Yeah, sorry,
but there was a Stipe Jukic,
yeah,
also with a Croatian last name, who was doing good stuff as a 17-year-old in the National League a year ago. Now is playing youth stuff in Croatia and trying to crack a first grade debut over there. P. Vlok, of course, still 17.
Sam Roos,
football
16.
stuff is a few. Who's 16?
Sam
Ruth. Yes, still 16, I think.
And Brooks
so
Smith.
He's coming into that. He's not even there yet.
Yeah.
Luke Brooks Smith, I think, is still 17. But he's not actually doing much at the moment, apart from coming on and getting 5 minutes and then winning the game in a game he should have been. Yeah, he hasn't turned 18 until June. So, yeah, that is a weird trend and a very cool trend.
Do you want to say anything about the American amateur basketball competition?
No, not about the competition, but I will just say that Charlisse Leger-Walker is our greatest ever maybe our greatest ever like college athlete across any sport playing in America. She's been absolutely incredible throughout her tenure there. Used to single-handedly just carry Washington State towards the national championships, and then because she was their star player and didn't get a huge amount of help, they would lose in the first round as soon as they get there. Now she's the starting point guard for UCLA, but like as the starting point guard for a team like that, I mean, she might get drafted in the first round of the WNBA draft and be like the fifth player picked from her team. You know, that team is absolutely stacked. And all she has to do for UCLA, who play their second round game this afternoon, I think. So that might have been played by the time this comes out, but like they should win. And all she has to do is be a point guard. Like she's gone from being like the Damian Lillard point guard, who you got to score 40 points to give your team a chance, to being like I don't know, like the Chris Paul point guard, where a line like she had in the first round of 8 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds, a couple steals, and big minutes alongside a whole bunch of players who all scored, you know, double digits. Like I think there were 5 players who got double digits. She wasn't one of them. That's all she's got to do. She's guiding this team to a lot of victories. I think she started every game this season, so it's not like she's being marginalized. Career high shooting percentages as well, because she doesn't have to do the volume stuff. She can really pick her moments, and she's shooting career highs, not just from 3-point range, but also from 2-point range. It's a very different type of Charlisse Leger-Walker to what we were seeing throughout her college career when she was at Washington State, but it is no less impressive, and it's for such a good team that like her last game of this illustrious college basketball career might be winning a national championship. You know, they're good enough to do that. They're in contention. I think they went like 32-1 through their regular season before this tournament, won their first game massively, won their conference championship by 50 points. So that's how much better they were than anyone else in their region. And she has been superb for them, and I look forward to tracking how she goes, because there has been, I don't know if there have been others, but I know Jack Salt won a national championship when he was playing for Virginia men's basketball, and he was sort of like the more of the epitome of what a Kiwi basketballer does when they go over there, where it's like you might start, but you might only play 10 minutes, or you might come off the bench, and some games you're not really needed at all. Other games there might be you are required for a big part of the thing, but it's more in a defensive role. You're not there to score points. You're just there to be a great teammate and to allow your team to have a foundation to be the best they can be. And he did that brilliantly. They loved him over there. And he did win a national championship with Virginia. We'll see if Charlisse Leger-Walker can match that. That would be cool. I haven't got the thing in front of me as well, and I might need to break it down a little bit. Well, I did a little bit on the last Thursday thingamajig, but as Charlisse Leger-Walker leaves college basketball after this, because this is her last year of eligibility, there's you know, no second chances, no third, fourth, fifth chances after this. She will be declaring for the WNBA, and she will no longer be playing college basketball, but we just had a freshman season for Lauren Whitaker playing at Gonzaga, which was incredible. Very different type of player. She's more like a power forward big, but someone who can pass extremely well from those positions, someone who rebounds well, who still scores at a good clip. She broke the record in her conference for the most Freshman of the Week awards, which obviously led to her winning Freshman of the Year in the conference. But she didn't only win Freshman of the Year, she won Player of the Year. So in her first season of college basketball, she was picked as the best player in her, you know, conference region. They did the Zags, Gonzaga, the Zags, they did get bounced in the first round, so that didn't go so well. I think she had like 8 points, 13 rebounds, something like that. A performance, but not enough to take them to an upset. However, that's year one. We're going to need a few more years of Lauren Whitaker. So as Charlisse Leger-Walker leaves that college basketball scene, we've got Lauren Whitaker taking over. So the scene is in good hands there. And of course, Charlisse Leger-Walker trying to become the second New Zealander ever, only the second New Zealander ever to play WNBA, which following Megan Campaign, which was like close to 30 years ago at this point. It's been a wee while, but she should get there. Like she's got the track record, she's got the player that she should get there. It's just a matter of where she gets drafted.
The White Ferns have won their T20 series against South Africa, and I'm pretty chuffed with where the White Ferns T20 team is at. Like, I do think there is a little bit of juice to winning games, and there's like a combination of winning games, winning confidence, and the clear impact of having Melie Kerr as the captain, which I do find fascinating considering the two previous captains are in the team. Like, there's such a clear, visible, and not tangible, intangible difference to this team with Melie Kerr as captain, even though the other captains are there, which to me just shows how amazing Melie Kerr is as a cricketer and as a leader. I think this is a good team. They've got that winning confidence, but as we saw with the last T20 World Cup, like, winning confidence doesn't matter because they didn't win anything. They barely won any games ahead of the T20 World Cup, and then they won games in the T20 World Cup and won the T20 World Cup. So I don't want to overstate the importance of winning games right now, considering literally the opposite happened for one of the greatest moments for the White Ferns, aside from the ODI World Cup ever. I think it's a good team. Like, there's just a sharpness, there's a confidence, there's a vigor, there's all sorts of good stuff happening with Melie Kerr as captain. And we did get a little bit of, like, there's three holes for me in this team, but they're not major holes. Like Susie Bates, I think it's a little bit weird, like, because when she's bowling at leg stump, and surely some team is going to have a plan for what Susie Bates is doing. Like, because she just bowls at leg stump, and South Africa don't really know what to do with it. So I don't think bowling at leg stump is going to be a long-term plan for Susie Bates. Like, surely you don't go into a T20 World Cup having forecasted that this is how Susie Bates is going to bowl. Everyone can see it, everyone can deal with it. Maybe it's just the plan for South Africa, but ultimately the expectation for Susie Bates, I reckon, is super low. Like, she doesn't need to take many wickets, she doesn't need to score many runs. She's there as a culture selection, and I've got no issues with that. She's not scoring a lot of runs, she's not taking a lot of wickets, but she's in the team, she doesn't have to do a lot, it's okay. We've got Rosemary Mair, who's been a very active member of the T20 team in the last year and a bit, since the start of 2025. She's played 12 out of 13 games, 11 innings bowled, 3 wickets at 89. So you've got a player who clearly looks to be a first 11 T20 player for the White Ferns, and she's got 3 wickets. She's bowled 36 overs. The only bowler with more overs is Jess Kerr, who's the best White Ferns bowler right now. Jess Kerr has 18 wickets. Next best is Sophie Devine and Melie Kerr on 9 wickets. Meanwhile, Melie Kerr has 511 runs. Next best is Georgia Plimmer on 226. So the Kerr sisters are dominating White Ferns T20 stuff at the moment. Mair appears to be a first 11 player for the White Ferns, and she's the only bowler averaging over Susie Bates' 40.6. So I don't know if we're seeing Rosemary Mair really command more first 11 opportunities, but I don't see a major difference there, considering Bree Illing has dropped out of the team, so you can go with Bree Illing ahead of Rosemary Mair, and Molly Penfold's only played 1 T20 since the start of 2025, so she is clearly, obviously not in their plan. So again, Mair's a little bit of an issue, but I think they're going to continue with her. She's not super expensive, and you can also tinker with Bree Illing. Then there's Brooke Halliday, who, again, first 11 player. She's played 13 games. Maddie Green's played 13 games. They're the only White Ferns to play 13 games. Brooke Halliday has 98 runs at 16.3 with a strike rate of 100 in this period since the start of 2025. She has one score over 40 in how many innings? 41 innings of T20 internationals. So Brooke Halliday is a first 11 batter who has a T20 international record of 14.3 average and 98 strike rate. One score over 40 in 41 innings. None of which screams first 11 T20 batter at me, but obviously she is viewed as a first 11 T20 batter. Interesting comparison is with Izzy Sharp, because they've both scored 98 runs since the start of 2025. Brooke Halliday has scored 98 runs at 16.3 and a strike rate of 100. Izzy Sharp has scored her 98 runs at an average of 32.6 and a strike rate of 127. One player has a strike rate of 100, one player has a strike rate of 127. One player is averaging 16.3, one player is averaging 32.6. Like, Brooke Halliday is the biggest hole in this team. She did have a nice score, a nice little finishing job in the series-winning T20 in Wellington. She will be a first 11 player moving forward. I don't see any change to that. She is clearly a talented batter. She's a lefty as well. But if you're looking for a weakness in this White Ferns T20 team, it is Brooke Halliday. And I don't think we're far off from where these type of selections aren't possible because someone else is just so good. I think right now, I don't have issues with Brooke Halliday staying in the first 11. I will keep highlighting that she doesn't really score runs, and she doesn't score runs aligned with T20 strike rates right now, because in this period, she's got a strike rate of 100, and the highest strike rates for the White Ferns in this period are Melie Kerr, 146, Maddie Green, 144, Izzy Gaze, 143, Sophie Devine, 134, Sharp, 127, Georgia Plummer, 125, Brooke Halliday's on 100. So she doesn't score many runs, and she's not scoring quick runs. That is an issue. I don't see any change there, though. And it's just up to whether Brooke Halliday is going to be good enough to make a contribution or two or three at the T20 World Cup. She is a good T20 bowler. She's averaging 14.1 with the ball in T20 internationals. But she doesn't bowl. She's bowled 2 overs since the start of 2025. And she's only bowled in 1 game. So, curious stuff happening there. But aside from that, and like, it's all good with Brooke Halliday because I think the team can absorb her in that batting lineup. She doesn't need to bowl, right? Like, this is the thing. It's a good T20 team. And when you've got a good team, some of those weak areas can be covered up and absorbed. And I do think this is a really good T20 team, strong batting lineup. And obviously people talk a lot about Susie Bates, but having Izzy Sharp and Jess Kerr down the order is just as useful as having Susie Bates, because Susie Bates, she doesn't score a lot of runs and she doesn't score a lot of quick runs either. So I think it's more useful talking about Sharp and Kerr down the order as far as extending that batting lineup. And there's plenty of bowling options. And it's like, there's seam, there's spin, there's other options. Like you can inject Flora Devonshire and Nancy Patel, really good spinning all-rounders. Polly Ingalls might be a factor just as a batter if she gets an opportunity. Obviously she is a wicketkeeper as well. And you've got Bree Illing, maybe Molly Penfold adding seam bowling depth there. Blackcaps T20 series rolls along as well. It's 2-2 heading into the Wednesday night fixtures in Christchurch. You can ask about any nitty gritty or throw up any ideas about some nitty gritty there, but I am interested in the wicket keeping selections, because we've got Tom Latham, then we go Dane Cleaver, and now Tom Blundell's come into the squad. I have no issues with that, because Dane Cleaver's scoring runs in domestic cricket. Tom Blundell is scoring runs to the extent where I think Tom Blundell is the only player like over 30 years old who is near the top of the 6-hitting charts in Plunket Shield. And I want to weave in some Plunket Shield stuff, because the Plunket Shield stuff's gone crazy. Blundell's got 10 sixes. Lachlan Stackpole's got 31, Matt Boyle's got 12, so that shows Lachlan Stackpole's doing some crazy stuff. And Bevan Jacobs has 11. Other guys in this list: Tim Robinson, Thomas O'Connor, Glenn Phillips, Christian Clark. So Tom Blundell's the only mature, experienced player in that 6-hitting charts. He's like, Blundell and Cleaver have scores. I have no issues with their selections. Like, Blundell's got recent scores of 98 not out, 96 and 35. I think he hit 6 sixes in the innings against Auckland. Dane Cleaver's doing all right as well. It does fit into the storyline that people love about the Blackcaps selecting older players. And the thing I find very strange about that is, like, people talk about the older players being selected for the Blackcaps as if they just forget about all the young players who are playing. And that's the thing that I'm thinking about with the Blackcaps right now, is there is a very interesting balance of older players and younger players getting opportunities. And to me, that reflects the strength of New Zealand cricket in the Blackcaps pipeline, where you've got older players who deserve their opportunity. Like, Nick Kelly has been one of the best batters in New Zealand for the last 5 years. Older players are being rewarded for their dedication and service, but mainly their performances. They're getting the opportunities at the Blackcaps level. Cole McConchie's getting that opportunity. But it's not like a whole team of older dudes, because there's younger guys as well. Tim Robinson and Bevan Jacobs, I love them. Are they demanding selection? Because they're not scoring many runs. Like, Bevan Jacobs isn't scoring many runs right now. Tim Robinson had a little knock in Wellington, but his form's dropped off. Maybe a Zach Folks. Like, the younger, like, Zach Folks has dipped away as well. The younger dudes are learning and adapting and growing to being international cricketers, and that's part of the journey. I'm actually quite impressed. Shout out big man Gavin Larson. And of course the coach Rob Walter. I'm pretty impressed with how they are finding the balance of older players and younger players in this, like, second tier Blackcaps group. Because I don't think the younger players just deserve a, full team of younger players. And if they do select a full team of younger players, they're going to lose. The older players deserve their opportunity. We've seen it in each format. Like, Michael Ray got an opportunity in Test cricket, made the most of it. Jaden Lennox got an opportunity in the ODIs, made the most of it. Cole McConchie got an opportunity in the T20Is recently, made the most of it. Those older dudes are earning their opportunities, and most of them are adding performances onto that keep them in the Blackcaps mix. And then you've got younger players sprinkled into there as well. So I'm actually quite impressed, and I like that balance in Blackcaps selections. The wicket-keeping stuff is specifically funky because Max Chu, he's Otago's best batter. He's having his best 2 seasons in each format of the last 2 seasons. So he's in career best form. He will play for the Blackcaps in the next 5 years. I guarantee it. Right now, Max Chu is a better domestic batter than Mitch Hay. And there has been a slight change with going to Dane Cleaver and Tom Blundell ahead of Mitch Hay. Because Mitch Hay was getting those opportunities in recent years. And I'm not mad at them not being selected. And I don't know if this is by design, but it does give Max Chu and Mitch Hay opportunities to win a Plunket Shield. Because Canterbury's first, Otago's second. They've got one game to play. Which is unfortunate for Dane Cleaver and Tom Blundell that they won't be contributing to the last round of Plunket Shield. Wellington haven't won a game, so they're not going to be factors. Maybe that was a factor then. Wellington, they're 0-5-1 in the Plunket Shield. Blackcaps need a wicketkeeper cover. Do we take Max Chu out of a Plunket Shield team that could win? I don't know if they've won Plunket Shield before. Do you take him out of that situation? I wouldn't want to do that. Mitch Hay could win a Plunket Shield as well. Do we take him out of that situation? I don't know. But at the same time, Dane Cleaver and Tom Blundell have been scoring a lot of runs recently as well. And my finishing point with that idea, if you are worried about so many older players getting game time for the Blackcaps, just wait a couple years. Because you're going to see the Max Chu and Mitch Hayes step into more Blackcaps cricket, and then you're going to start to see Thomas O'Connor, Lachlan Stackpole, Simon Keane, Tim Pringle, etc., etc., Reece Murray, Muhammad Abbas coming back. All those dudes are going to be playing a lot more cricket for the Blackcaps. But ultimately, they have to keep scoring runs and taking wickets, all of which is for the betterment of New Zealand cricket.
I think that that Blackcaps over 30s idea has really moved into self-fulfilling prophecy mode, where just people see a 30-plus-year-old playing for the Blackcaps and it's like a trigger reaction without any context or logic or at this point. Maybe there was a point in the past where it was more true. Certainly it's more true in the test scene than it is in the T20 scene, but anyone just knee-jerk reaction saying that about Dane Cleaver or Tom Blundell being in this team is Cleaver's there, but so's Tim Robinson. Blundell's there, and Nick Kelly is there in the middle order, right next to Bevan Jacobs. Zach Fox is getting games. Ben Sears is getting games. It's not one or the other. It's actually just, like you said, a really nice balance in this team, which also it is weird how often everyone knows that it's a Blackcaps B team up until the game start, and then people decide to deliberately forget that it's a Blackcaps B team. It's this isn't the team that we were going to take to the World Cup final or anything like that. It's just a series, and we get something out of it in a few different areas. Guys get opportunities that might not otherwise, and then you see who does well and who doesn't do well, and then you make your decisions moving forward about who's going to continue to get opportunities. It's just kind of it just seems like a normal way for a team to operate. I'm always surprised when people read more into these types of things than they need to, but it has been quite a fun series, and it has been maybe not quite as much fun as the White Ferns. I've really loved watching the White Ferns in these ones. They have won an extra game, so that helps. But it's like you said about Melie Kerr. It's that team, just the vibe of that team has changed so much. I think Jess Kerr was interviewed after one of the games, and I think it was the most recent one, and asked about it, what's it like? I think the question was a little more what's it like being captained by your younger sister? But her response, I thought, was really telling, where it was just saying that Melie's the type of player who, when she's she makes you feel 10 feet tall kind of thing. And as long as I can remember, the White Ferns have seemed like a team that lacks the confidence to play to their best abilities. And the captains have just been let's give it to the best player. And this is still that. that strategy might not have changed with Melie Kerr getting it, but the the whole kind of feel of that team, just the aura of that team has changed so much, and they are having fun. And Kerr doesn't look like a burden for them, which is something I think the Blackcaps are always pretty good at. Is those guys go out there and do have fun, whether it's because they know that this is an opportunity they might not otherwise get, or whether it's just because that's the way the best players from New Zealand play when they're at their best. Is do your thing and see how it goes. But yeah, it has been a fun series for the Blackcaps as well. Is there anyone sort of like caught your eye specifically from within that?
Well, Ben Sears is one of our best T20 bowlers. He's almost ever category. He's our best T20 bowler right now, and he's the best T20 bowler like right now, as in this series against South Africa, leading wicket take, averaging 13.1. So he's been very impressive. I don't really know what's happening with the batting, as in I don't have anything interesting to say. I do have like so the three players in the three formats. It was an idea where I was thinking like I just didn't predict this at the start of the summer. I didn't predict Michael Ray would be a test bowling factor. I didn't predict Jaden Lennox would be an ODI factor, and I didn't predict Cole McConchie would be a T20 factor. All of them are over 30 years old. So you might look at that and be like, oh, the guys who have come in and impacted it are all 30 years old. But as you laid out, where I can say Christian Clark was actually the leading wicket taker in the ODI series against India, right? So he's a youngster. But I just had this interesting idea where you've got that. So you got Michael Ray, Jaden Lennox, and Cole McConchie all contributing to winning Blackcaps cricket in each format as older players. At the same time as that's happening, we do have Lachlan Stackpole, who has scored 596 runs at a strike rate of 99, and he has hit 31 sixes. He is Auckland's leading run scorer. He's got a strike rate of 99. He's the only player with a strike rate over 88. He's got 31 sixes. He's the only player with over 15 sixes. He's averaging 54 with the bat. How old's he? Like 21 years old. 20 years old. And all of this is in Plunket Shield. So that's not bad. Simon Keane. He's second for runs, second for wickets, second for catches for Auckland in the Plunket Shield. He's averaging 51 with the bat, and he's averaging 26 with the ball. He's 24 years old. I did mention Max Chew. Fantastic form. Plunket Shield right now, he is 7th for runs, averaging 58. He's got 2 centuries. There's also this dude, Thomas O'Connor, who has played 3 games and he's got 23 wickets at 11 at an average of 12. But he also just hit like 6 sixes to help Otago win a game in front of what sounded like an excellent crowd down in Dunedin. So you got 3 older dudes who have all contributed to the Blackcaps in each format. And I just listed 4, but there's 3 that I was thinking mainly about: Simon Keane, Lachlan Stackpole, and Thomas O'Connor. 3 younger dudes who are all doing crazy shit in Plunket Shield. I also just saw Will O'Rourke. He's playing for Canterbury A. We got a lefty seamer, Ray Toole, who's the leading wicket taker. Let me take you through the top wicket takers in Plunket Shield. Ray Toole, Rohit Gulati, Fraser Sheet, Tim Pringle, Simon Keane, Thomas O'Connor. All of them emerging bowlers of varying degrees. Matt Boyles, like Canterbury, just they played a game. I think they won. Reece Mardu, Matt Boyle, and Mitch Hay all had a 50-plus score. Again, if you're worried about young cricketers in New Zealand, don't be worried, because they are doing some crazy shit in domestic cricket. And the youngsters, as we always say, are more talented than any other previous generations of New Zealand cricketers. And just wait a year or two, because these guys will start to filter through. And there's a couple tiers. There's some interesting tiers where I did mention Reece Mariu, him and Mohamed Abbas, Adi Ashok, right? Why don't we care about Blackcaps contracts? Because none of them have actually played since getting a contract for New Zealand Blackcaps. Those guys played for New Zealand without contracts, and they got contracts, and they're not playing for New Zealand. So why would I care about Blackcaps contracts at all? But there's that tier of player, right? Reece Mariu, Mitch Hay, Zach Fox, Will O'Rourke, Nathan Smith, Ben Sears, Mohamed Abbas, so on and so on. We can chuck Curtis Heafy into there. We can chuck Matt Boyle into there. Some of them have played for New Zealand, some of them haven't. But below that, you've got Thomas O'Connor, Simon Keane, and Lachlan Stackpole, right? So below the Reece Mariu, Abbas, Fox, Will O'Rourke, like below the Will O'Rourke tier is Thomas O'Connor and Simon Keane. Who's the biggest big hitter youngster, mate? Like, I don't know off the top of my head, but Mariu loves smashing boundaries. Abbas loves smashing boundaries. No one's doing what Lachlan Stackpole's doing below that tier. So there's young players, but then there's younger players who are doing crazy stuff as well. So it's like a lot of people, they know all about Reece Mariu. They know all about that player, those players in that tier, because there's either been a lot of buzz about them or they've played for the Blackcaps already. There's a whole nother tier below them. That's what is so awesome about the Blackcaps pipeline specifically. That's why I love it. That's why I enjoy it. And that's why I think this is the best era of Blackcaps cricket that we have ever seen. But we do need to get into lots of football. We do have All Whites fixtures coming up, and that means that the A-League is taking a break. The Wellington Phoenix women are playing Wednesday night against Central Coast Mariners, then back on Sunday. Surely that's a Jerry Collins Poreroa Park banger against Western Sydney Wanderers. Just waiting for it to come up. Yes, Poreroa Park, otherwise known as Jerry Collins Stadium. So no men's A-League football. We do have women's A-League football coming up. Just the general vibes. Auckland FC, bit of a dip, bit of a stinker, to be honest. I think that was a 2-1, 1-2 loss against MacArthur.
Yeah.
And excellent win for the Wellington Phoenix women. Wellington Phoenix men, very good win for them as well. Obviously, Chris Greenacre is, for some reason, when I was thinking about like the legendary coaches, Carlo Ancelotti popped into my mind, and then I was like, I don't even know if he's like a legendary coach, but that was just a blast from the past.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, so Chris Greenacre, he's now Carlo Ancelotti. That's amazing. Shout out to Chris Greenacre. He does seem to have tinkered with a few things, and that has led to better Phoenix football. You did break that down in our newsletter. A few changes and players who have had their minutes increase and players who have had their minutes decrease. Minutes increase, Corbin Piper, Paulo Retre, and Dan Edwards. Hard working. I think Dan Edwards is the Jackson Ford of the Phoenix.
I can see it. He's also, he's made 4 starts this year and they've won 3 of them. Dang. So Jackson Ford also has 3 wins this season. They've got that in common.
Yeah, I don't like Dan Edwards he doesn't have 5 shots on target, 3 goals per game, and like football equivalent to what Jackson Ford is doing in the NRL, statistics wise. But I meant that as a hard working player. Minutes decrease, Carlo Armiento. Obviously, Dan Edwards is
1 for 1 there, yeah.
Taking care of that. Matt Sheridan and Luke Brooks-Smith. So interestingly, Luke Brooks-Smith had a good impact in the win just on the weekend, but his minutes have gone down under Chris Greenacre. And I still find it weird. I do want to make this point. So the football league we have going on right now, Auckland FC have a reserves team in that league. And they have a team in the Oceania Champions League.
Oceania Professional League, yeah. There is a Champions League, which is a separate thing for the the clubs like Northern League, etc.
It's a bit complicated, but
it is very complicated.
Then they have the A-League team. So right now, Auckland FC have 3 teams in action, playing football games right now. I say that because in the local league where there is an Auckland FC team playing, there's also Mr. Flowerdew is playing. And I still find it a bit weird that this season started with an epic win over Wrexham. Flowerdew scored that goal, and he's already departed the Wellington Phoenix, and Chris Greenacre is now the coach of the Phoenix. So I do wonder if he stayed at the Phoenix then, because Chris Greenacre was coaching that game against Wrexham, in which the youngsters look really good for the Phoenix. So like somewhere along the line, the Phoenix told Flowerdew they didn't want him. And so he left. But he was one of the most impressive youngsters in that game against Wrexham. So that's just a weird tangent that I've been thinking about. But
and then Luke Flowerdew scored a double on debut for Auckland United on the weekend. So
what do you think the chances are that he joins the Auckland FC system?
Fairly slim, because now that they've got a pro league team and a reserve team, like they've kind of got their own players already, and they're working with them from a younger age than that to, bring them up through not just their system, but the Northern League system, because of their, affiliate deals with all those clubs. So I'd say it's slim. He's already too old for the reserves, but he is the type of player who they might, if he's scoring a lot of goals in the Northern League this season, they might look at him for next year's Pro League squad. Certainly, like that would be the way in.
They've also shown
to prove himself a few steps up on the way to get to A-League, but they've players of a similar caliber are in that team now. So yeah, that could happen.
They've also they've built their system by recruiting players from other systems, so they don't have any shame in we're going to sign this player from outside our system, bring him in. So they've got that.
Yeah. You start up a club from scratch, you don't have a choice, right? You got to grab them from other places.
But it's not like the Warriors, they don't just promote players from their under-19s to their under-21s to New South Wales Cup. They sign players from Fox Memorial in Auckland. They sign players from reserve grade in Australia, as well as the players they promote through their system. And based on what I know about Auckland FC, they seem like a club that if you're playing well, they're going to give you an opportunity. That's a lot of chat about a player in local park footy, though. So shout out to Flowerdew. Just been a weird 12 months for you. I appreciate it and I understand it. And part of that involves the guy who coached you in that game where you looked your best for the Phoenix now being the not full-time, but he's the coach of the Phoenix. And he's gone from being extremely mediocre in my mind to being Carlo Ancelotti. So well done to Chris Greenacre. Shout out to you.
Well, he hasn't made that transformation for me quite yet. I was thinking about this, and I had to be honest with myself and admit that I just don't think there's anything he could do to make me think that he should be hired as the full-time coach. I just don't like, no matter how good it is down that particular path, I don't think that's the path they need to go. I think they need an outside voice to shake things up a little bit more, rather than yet another internal promotion. They need a Bev Priestman, not a Paul Temple, which is what this would be on the male equivalent side of it. Even if he does really well for the rest of the season, and I hope he does, because they've actually 2 wins in a row. It's what we're saying all along. It's just a matter of getting 2 wins in a row, which they literally had not done all season, but they actually are now. It's not crazy to talk about top 6 because the A-League is crazy, where a lot of teams keep losing and no one wants to go on a winning streak. So if they are that team that goes on a winning streak, now that they've actually got something tangible for us and won 2 games on the trot, we might see. I do find it interesting that Greenacre, the reserves team maestro, the sort of head of pathways at the club, hasn't really leaned into any of the youngsters though. It will be interesting if that follows on. Like Flowerview's gone, but does Luke Supert come back into the mix at any point? Even just Luke Brooks-Smith, I was sitting there shocked at how he wasn't subbing him on in a game that was so perfectly suited to him when they were sitting back and hitting on the counter attack. But look, but your best, one of your best dribblers in open play and broken play, chuck him on there for the exact situation that he ended up setting the winning goal up from, which he did eventually. He only got 5 minutes, and that was still enough for him to score the crucial goal. But like, they had some luck in that game. Mandrake James had a blatant handball at one point that they didn't call, which would have made it 2-1 the other way around. But, as Greeny said afterwards, like the Phoenix have copped their share, more than their share of VAR confusion, penalty decisions along the way. So you're allowed to get one right. You're allowed to get one wrong in your favor for once every now and then. That's fine. It does balance out. I agree with them on that. The course of the season, they got that one there and they did win that game. It could easily have gone the other way, though. It's not like they blew them off the park, but it was a good enough tactical setup to get the victory that they needed. So that was nice stuff. That was nice progressive stepping forward towards less worry about what's over your shoulder and more worrying about what's in front of you what's ahead of you, above you with the top six.
And credit to the Phoenix, they are now closer to finals footy than the Wooden Spoon.
There we go.
So I do have to be honest and update that. Now, hey, you're in the mix. So now I can actually start to think about what if the Phoenix do make the finals. And if they make the finals, Chris Greenacre is going to be their full-time coach. Like, I guarantee it. So you better be prepared for that. Just quickly, how do you do you have one thing from that Auckland FC loss?
I do, because I'm very curious about how other teams react to that. Because MacArthur aren't really a factor in the long term. Like, I think they'd lost 4 games in a row or something before this one. They've at least been on a bit of a dip. So they have been tricky. I think they've given difficult games to the Phoenix and Auckland FC at other stages of the season. So they are the type of team that can definitely, I remember them making it difficult for the Phoenix just by being able to clog the midfield and not letting them sort of play through that. They did kind of something similar against Auckland FC, but they started with the back 3 shape. So you got the wing backs, and the wing backs push higher than fullbacks, right? So your wing backs are hanging up, and then Francis de Vries and Callan Elliott, they can't push as far forward because they're leaving someone unmarked behind them, and you just sort of pin them back that way. And then when you've got those guys pinned back, I think it's a lot easier to roll through the midfield of Auckland's. And they were freaking out about it. Like they had like Danny Hay and Steve Corica. Corica said he noticed it in the warm-up, so he'd warned the team before that. But like they were scribbling out with the notebooks and working out, trying to how are we going to figure this out 10 minutes into that game, and then they find themselves 2-0 down at halftime. Then they switch it up at halftime and go to the back 3. They didn't actually stay that. I think they eventually they went to 4 and just like threw extra guys forward. But it wasn't until stoppage time they finally got a goal back. But it was like the way in which they were that rattled, in a way you never see this team get rattled. They normally do the rattling for others, but then also just in a footballing tactical sense, the fact that they struggled against that. I wonder how much we're going to see that now from other teams being like, well, Auckland FC didn't know how to combat the back 3 and wing backs particularly well in this game. And their best idea to do it was to go to a back 3 themselves, which I don't know what the numbers are for this, but from my anecdotal experience, I feel like they're a much worse team when they play with 3 at the back themselves. I just don't think they get as many players into good positions. Thought it was kind of crazy how much they just were leaning on Francis de Vries to whip and crosses. Yes, but that Francis de Vries whips in good crosses, so that alone wasn't so bad. It's the idea that if you're whipping and crosses over and over and over and over, you're probably looking for your 6'5" center forward or whatever, and Cosgrove was just not winning any of those. Like, he just didn't even seem like a You would have known he was there despite playing in a one-dimensional strategy that's to be targeted specifically for him, which is a weird aspect of Cosgrove's season, which I feel like I've got a little bit more clarity on now. It's like the more they play to him, the worse he is, the more he disappears. When they play around him and he's able to sort of fit in and find his little areas and get in pockets for tap-ins and following up on shot, hunting at the back post rather than like trying to be the main man at the front post with crosses that were meant for him all along. That feels like where he's way more effective. I hope they don't shake up too much in terms of personnel, but Karaka normally does after a loss. And so we'll see what that means for the Gallegos Howison midfield. We'll see what that means for the Guillermo Mai, Sam Cosgrove strike force. We'll see what that means for Logan Rogerson at right back, maybe even Callan Elliott, right mid, and then Callan Elliott right back, maybe. Jake Goodwood-Wright had a step back despite scoring a goal at the end after a really good patch of form before that. So if Nando Peineke returns after the international break, that might be another change he leans towards. There's quite a bit he could do, and it's coming off like a nice unbeaten streak where it felt like a lot of these players are coming into really good form. Now we're at a point where it's like, yeah, that result was pretty bad, and they've got 2 weeks of training to figure it out, minus their international players. I'm curious what type of changes he makes as a result of this, whether he wants to make a lot of them or whether it's sort of like, these guys were winning games before this. We don't need to overreact. And I'm also very curious, especially more curious, to see whether this result and the approach from MacArthur gives other teams some kind of inspiration of like, well, maybe that's the chink in the armor we've been looking for a season and a half against these guys.
Wellington Phoenix women, great win for them. They are second on the ladder. 2 games coming up this week. Central Coast Mariners are 8th and Western Sydney Wanderers are 10th. So we could be looking at even better Phoenix football coming up. What are you thinking about?
And Melbourne City don't play this week because they've got an Asian Champions League game, which is why they've played more games than the Phoenix. So with them not playing, if the Phoenix win these 2 very winnable games, if they go, take 6 points from the next 6-7 days, whatever it is, they would go ahead of Melbourne City on goal difference, leading into the final round because they've only got 3 more games until the end of it. I think they're guaranteed finals footy at this point. If not guaranteed, then it's like the win. If they do anything other than lose against Central Coast on Wednesday night, I think that will seal the deal. But we're not worried about whether they make the finals at this point because that's a given. We're worried about whether they can finish first or was it Adelaide? Someone else is hanging around near the top as well. Maybe
Canberra and Adelaide.
Yeah, okay, both of them. So there are other teams that might they're certainly not guaranteed to finish in the top 2 or anything like this, but they should have the games ahead to be able to. I think it might be Adelaide they're playing the last game, but I'm not 100% on that. That is like they could. This is all in their own hands. There's a minor premiership on the way, and the only way, if they win their last 3 games, the only way Melbourne City could stop them from winning a minor premiership would be them winning like 10-15-0 or something like that, depending on what the margins are for the Phoenix over the next week and their final one, because the Phoenix have scored as many goals as City and conceded fewer, something along those lines. They've got the best goal difference in the competition, the best defense by a fair margin, and they're still scoring plenty and had some big wins along the way. So these are big games for them. Like, these are pressure games. These are the types of games where it's like, yes, you should win, but also we'll learn a bit about them and how we can expect them to perform in finals footy by seeing what they do in these ones, knowing what is at stake for them, because there is a minor premiership there for the taking if they can go 3 from 3 the rest of the way.
Pia Vlock did come back. She scored a goal. She is awesome. I am enjoying how that's the spine of their team are Kiwis. You got Vic Essen in goal. Mackenzie Barry is the lead centre back. She's the captain. She's the leader of the team. We talked about last week the Pynenberg Grace Jale midfield that I think is their best midfield, and then you've got Pia Vlock, whose best role I believe is a cam centre attacking midfield. And what more do you want for an A-League women's team to have Vic Essen, Mackenzie Barry, Pynenberg and Jale Piavlock. Now, obviously, you got other Kiwis, you got your Monai Elliots, your Marissa Vandermeers, like those type of players. But as far as like spine and controlling a game and just pure class, those are four really good Phoenix Women's players. And I don't know, like maybe Pynenberg might not be one of the best midfielders in the A-League or something like that, but it's like they're in one of the best teams in the A-League, and I feel like those type of players, even just like all the Kiwis, you could say, who get regular game time for the Phoenix, they're among the better players in the A-League instead of like not relevant at all in that discussion.
Yeah, I think so. And I think even someone like Pynenberg, who I don't think the average A-League follower would necessarily think of to put her in that list. I think there's an argument. She's certainly not the best midfield there, but she is extremely good within the role that she's given for this team. She fits it very well. She's kind of changed what that role is a little bit by forcing her way into the starting lineup. Because, there's it's a little bit there where it was like CJ Bott and Grace Jolly, right? Where it's just like, forget about passing, forget about possession. Let's just, don't worry too much about the craft. Let's just batter people. With respect to Grace Jolly being an excellent long passer and being able to whip that ball out to the wingers. Pynenberg doesn't play like that at all. She's adapted in ways to to get used to the physicality, to get used to those types of demands. But she's also helped change the Phoenix's approach from that first month or two into being a little bit loftier because of the abilities that she brings with the type of player that she is. So I think that's also, and that is aligned pretty much specifically. Like, what's her first game? The 7-0. She's kind of like, she's done that at the time where the team just clicked. Her first game was the game after 7. Okay, so she turned up a week later and they won 3-0 against Western Sydney in that game. And have done a lot of winning since then, since Emma Pynenberg's been in that team.
Righto, let's just have a quick little All Whites chat. I think we will do a big All Whites preview in our bonus podcast on Thursday for the Patreon whānau and those with a paid Substack subscription. We'll get into the nitty gritty there. We did have Chris Wood hanging out with the lads, the boys, the under-21 boys. I did like he scored that goal for the Nottingham Forest under-21s, and everyone's like, oh my God, how's he playing under-21s? It's football. Like, they don't have age restrictions in those teams, because you hear stories like, because they don't really have like reserve teams in England, right? Like they have.
No, that's why they have like those academy teams are their reserve teams, which is why you're allowed to play. Same reason why Ollie Sale played a couple games of National League for the Auckland FC under-20s, because you're allowed to have a couple overage players.
I did like it. He scored the goal, and then he's like, just watching him high five, like all these like just almost boys.
The oldest other player in that team was 21, and the youngest was 17. I think the guy who set the goal up actually was the 17-year-old. So it's a 17-year-old hitting it was a shot, but he sliced the shot, and Chris Wood sort of swooped in and headed it home. Is half his age. Is a 17-year-old sitting up 34-year-old playing for the under-21s.
So Chris Wood isn't playing for the All Whites because he's too busy playing under-21 footy for Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, that's it.
How, like, is there just one player, one pocket of All Whites footy that you're top of mind to it, like, to give me something just to ponder before we get into that bonus podcast on Thursday?
Well, there was something you mentioned a couple, it's not the pocket, but there's something you mentioned last week or the week before, I can't remember, when we're talking about this, and you're saying like the skill sets that translate to a World Cup versus the things that the players can do for their clubs, the things that they're able to continue to do for the All Whites in, games against tougher opposition, and when everyone's been scouted and everything's, pressure's on, the spotlight's on, the whole world is watching. The more I've thought about that, the more I think I did write about this a little bit in the preview, which is kind of where I fleshed out the idea. The more I thought, like remember when we talked about Sarpreet Singh's counter-pressing when he joined the Phoenix? Well, Giancarlo Italiano was talking about Sarpreet Singh's counter-pressing, which is true. I think he is a pretty good counter-presser.
Yeah, but like that To me, that's not important in a player.
I think most coaches would disagree with that. That's what we're talking about. Like, there's you got to be able to win the ball back after you lose it. It's maybe not
to me
the
that's a
only
given.
thing you want.
If I'm an Andrew Webster football coach, that's a given. I'm not like, yeah, that guy really chases the ball hard. No, like we all chase the ball hard. We all fight for the ball. Like, what are we doing here?
Well, the counter pressing is a bit more specific in terms of like let's say the 5 or 10 seconds immediately after the turnover to try win it back.
Yeah, same thing. Like you just react. We need the ball back. Get the ball back.
I think it's something that Steve Corica wouldn't emphasize for an Auckland FC signing because he would have expected of them, whereas maybe Giancarlo Italiano has to emphasize it because his team was losing a lot of games, and you have to push those effort plays a bit more because you have to get the guys to do them, because if you're losing, you're probably not. But there's a good reference, right, for Saprit Singh being good at that stuff. Italiano was a very detail-orientated coach, so if he says something like that, he's got data to prove it. I'm watching a lot of Elijah Just playing for Motherwell, and he's incredible on the press. So this isn't just like, I'm not just talking specific counter pressing. We're just talking about all the ways in which you can win the ball back, all the ways in which you can be on the front foot when you don't have possession. Elijah Just is superb at that stuff. Like he's causing goals against Celtic by pushing up and causing turnovers like that, putting pressure not just on the defenders but on the goalkeeper as well when the ball goes back there, and just like shutting off lanes and just being 2 steps ahead and knowing, well, if it goes to the centre back, he's right-footed, he's going to want to turn out, so I'm going to go on the outside and force him to turn back in on his left, sort of thing. All those little elements, Elijah Just is brilliant at that stuff, and they're like, his teammates are saying this, his coach is saying this, the Scottish football pundits are saying this. There's another guy who's really good at this stuff. Callum McCowart, I think, is very good at his work rate. So where like he is someone who I think a lot of people consider just to be a winger or a forward. He's played a fair bit of midfield, including on the weekend he played on midfield for Silkeborg. You don't do that if you're not someone who can get back and work out, and it's sort of the defensive stats for him back that up as well. Chris Wood is brilliant at these things. It's something he's developed in the second half of his career. He's not known as a speedster. He's not going to rush you and force a mistake that way, but he's really smart. Things like that, he'll track back when he needs to, but he also just is very smart at getting into the passing lanes and making sure that first option out, that first sort of hint of a counterattack is not there. Forcing a guy in a certain direction, and maybe Elijah Just or someone pounces. Brilliant defensive-minded, or brilliant midfielders in the defensive aspects of it, the way they track, the way they read the game, anticipate things. There's a lot of players in the middle of the field for the All Whites who they could lean on to not just have like 1 or 2 moments. Matt Garbutt as well is someone who is a little less disciplined about it, but he has the sort of the X factor of being able to do that. The energy, certainly. You can. This isn't just like an individual in a moment here might get isolated and do something. This is something you have enough players to build a strategy around. You can build a full team-wide kind of focus on this stuff, and I wonder if they will, because I do think there's something to be about the All Whites. Maybe like Callum McCowart scored a lot of goals in Denmark, and he's playing for a team that likes to play on the counter attack and play in those kind of broken play moments and create chances that way. Lots of running, lots of turn and go stuff. Elijah Just is playing for a team that's very position dominant. Chris Wood has played for teams that do both, but generally he's more of a team that doesn't have the ball and sets up fairly defensively. And then this is what Nottingham Forest were doing last year, built on defense, etc. Those don't all align. And I wonder if maybe there is a case to say that the All Whites need to pick a lane. And maybe they've been trying to do a little bit too much of like get the best of all these guys, but not having something cohesive around that. And I wonder if they're that sort of being a pressing team out of possession, now that in the lead up to the World Cup, they're going to be able to focus a little bit more on the opponents they're going to play, and the same sort of group of players building up towards that. Everyone's laser focused. You're not going to be worried at a World Cup about what their club game is after the international window. if that is the case, we'll probably see some hints of stuff like that in the weekend against Finland, against Chile. But I wonder if that's something to consider for, Darren Baisley and the team, is whether it's sort of like pick something specific. You've got all these different options there of what these players do, which like lean into something to form I don't know, a little bit more of a tactical identity.
Yeah, I that will happen, but everything you're describing is defense. And this is another football semantics thing, pressing and counter pressing. Like, it's defense. What are you doing defensively? And that means, what are you doing defensively?
Many different ways to do that, though.
Yeah, but what are you doing defensively as a striker? What are you doing defensively as a midfielder in different positions? And guess what? New Zealand is good at defense. So, like, the efforts you're describing, to me, those are New Zealand football things. And the identity of New Zealand football is we work hard without the ball. So I expect a strong defensive identity, which is what you're kind of talking about, with the All Whites, because these players are Kiwis. We see it around the world with how they play their football. And I think we're going to see that for the All Whites this weekend and moving forward. So big up everyone. Enjoy the Aotearoa sporting action. Kia kaha, stay beautiful, church.